across decentralized finance protocols for additional opportunities. Midas co-founder Dennis Dinkelmeyer said that MXRP could, quote, play a key role in unlocking new use cases for XRP. The targeted net returns for MXRP are set in the 6 to 8% range, though the final outcome will depend on underlying strategy performance.
Everybody always goes back to that one story, right? The guy who threw $900 into XRP back in 2014 and somehow walked away with over $1 million by 2018. That's the kind of legend that gets burned into crypto history. And it's not just a flex, it's the benchmark. People hear that and immediately start running the math in their heads. Okay, so what would it take today? Could I be that guy? Could XRP still pull something like that in 2025? And that's where the energy comes from. It's not just about charts and candles. It's about recreating that moment when life-changing money was sitting right in front of the people bold enough, or crazy enough, to grab it. Now let's be real, XRP has always been a different beast. Unlike Bitcoin, which was designed to be this pure, decentralized rebellion against banks, XRP was literally engineered for the banks. Built for speed, built for efficiency, built to solve the ancient, clunky way money moves across borders. Back in 2014, people thought Ripple was insane for even trying to get institutions on board. Fast forward to 2025, and we've got central banks openly experimenting with Ripple's technology, remittance giants quietly using ODL, and whole governments running CBDC pilots that plug into the same rails. It's wild to see how the banker coin everyone loved to hate is now part of the real-world financial plumbing. And the funny part? The same centralization FUD people screamed about in 2017 is still around. Oh, XRP is pre-mined. Oh, Ripple holds too much supply. Oh, the escrow makes it a controlled asset. And look, those criticisms weren't totally wrong. But here's the thing. In 2025, Ripple has been systematically unlocking, selling, and redistributing XRP for years, and the market has absorbed it. Banks don't want pure anarchy, they want predictability, compliance, and liquidity. And that's exactly what XRP is still offering. You might not love it if you're a Bitcoin maxi, but if you're a pragmatist who just wants to see money actually move faster, cheaper, and globally, XRP makes sense. So here we are in 2025 with XRP still trading under $2, still waiting for that big breakout, still being doubted by half the market while being accumulated by the other half. But let me say this, the setup feels eerily similar to how Bitcoin looked in 2015 or Ethereum in 2019. Everyone was clowning, everyone was bored, everyone thought the moment had passed, until suddenly it hadn't. And that's why the question isn't, can XRP ever repeat 2014 to 2018? The real question is, what happens if Ripple actually achieves its original mission on a global scale? Because if that happens, then that $900 to $1 million story won't just be history, it'll be a preview. Alright, let's really dig into what makes XRP different, because you can't just talk about this coin like it's another meme coin floating around waiting for Elon to tweet. XRP has an actual purpose. It wasn't built to be a speculative casino chip. It was built as the grease for the financial engine. If Bitcoin is digital gold, XRP is the oil. Its main mission has always been cross-border payments, making money move across borders faster, cheaper, and more efficiently than the 50-year-old dinosaur system called SWIFT. Let me paint the picture. Right now, in 2025, if you try to wire money from Lagos to London or from Manila to Mexico, you're still running into delays, fees, and middlemen. The SWIFT system is slow, expensive, and outdated. Sometimes your money takes 2 to 3 days to actually land, and you pay a ridiculous percentage of it just in fees. XRP was designed to solve that exact problem. With XRP, we're talking settlement in seconds, not days. We're talking fractions of a cent in fees, not 10, 20, 30 bucks out of your pocket just to move your own money. That's a real-world use case, not just a white paper fantasy. And the beauty is in the speed. Bitcoin might be the king of decentralization, but it's slow compared to XRP. Ethereum is powerful, sure, but it clogs up and fees skyrocket during peak usage. XRP stays fast and cheap, even under heavy load. The network is built for throughput, thousands of transactions per second. It's literally a Ferrari on the blockchain highway. And let's be honest, if you're a bank or a remittance company, you don't care about ideological purity. You care about efficiency. You care about customer satisfaction. You care about cost savings. XRP offers that in a package that regulators can stomach and institutions can actually use. Now, of course, the big elephant in the room has always been centralization. XRP is pre-mined, meaning the entire supply was created at launch. Ripple Labs held a massive portion of it in escrow, and they still release it gradually into the market. Critics scream, "That's not decentralized. That's a company controlling the asset." And in a way, they're right, it's not decentralized in the same way Bitcoin is. But here's the twist. In 2025, decentralization isn't always the selling point. Banks, governments, even Fortune 500 companies, they don't want total decentralization. They want stability, predictability, and compliance. And Ripple structured XRP to deliver exactly that. Think about it. The escrow system that people hated so much, it's actually a predictable release schedule. Markets don't like surprises. They like consistency. Ripple says, "Here's what we're unlocking, here's what we're selling." And the market can price it in. That's not shady. That's transparent. Compare that to Bitcoin miners dumping coins whenever they feel like it, or Ethereum changing its tokenomics mid-game with EIP upgrades. XRP's system may not feel sexy to the hardcore decentralization crowd, but it's tailor-made for institutions that need to know what they're getting into. And let's not forget adoption. Ripple has been slowly but surely onboarding banks, payment providers, and even central banks. They started with Xcurrent, a messaging system that improved on Swift without even touching XRP. Then they moved to XRapid, now called On-Demand Liquidity or ODL, which actually uses XRP to move value. That's the phase we're in now. Banks and companies testing the rails, dipping their toes in, and some of them diving in fully. In 2025, ODL volume is higher than ever, with corridors opening up across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. MoneyGram, SBI Holdings, Tranglo, these names aren't hype. They're real players using the tech. Here's what makes that powerful. When banks and payment companies use XRP, they don't need to hold pre-funded Nostro accounts in foreign currencies anymore. Nostro accounts are basically dormant money, capital sitting in limbo just to grease the wheels of the old system. With XRP, you eliminate that. You send money instantly across borders without parking billions of dollars in accounts that don't earn you a dime. That's a massive efficiency gain. We're talking about unlocking trillions of dollars that could be working in the economy instead of just sitting around. That's not a meme, that's hard economic value. But let's be real, Ripple isn't doing this in a vacuum. Competition is fierce. You've got Stellar, XLM, which was literally created by a Ripple co-founder, targeting the same cross-border payment space but with a more grassroots approach. You've got central banks launching CBDCs, which in some cases are built on Ripple's tech but don't necessarily require XRP. You've got giants like JP Morgan creating JP Morgan Coin to handle internal settlements. On the surface, that looks like a threat. But here's the difference. XRP isn't tied to one bank, one country, or one use case. It's neutral. It's global. It's not the dollar, it's not the euro, it's not the yuan. It's a bridge. And in a multipolar financial world, that neutrality is a strength. Now, in 2025, the decentralization debate is still alive. Some hardcore crypto purists will never touch XRP. They'll scream banker coin until their lungs give out. But here's the irony. While they're screaming, banks are quietly integrating. Governments are quietly piloting. Payment companies are quietly saving money. And retail investors, they're still quietly accumulating, waiting for the breakout. So the real question isn't whether XRP is pure enough for the crypto ethos. The real question is whether XRP solves a problem the world desperately needs fixed. And when you strip away the noise, the answer is yes, it does. That's why the centralization versus decentralization fight almost feels outdated. In 2025, it's about utility. It's about adoption. It's about which network actually moves value at scale without blowing up fees or lagging behind. And love it or hate it, XRP checks those boxes. Fast, cheap, scalable, predictable. Not the sexiest narrative, but in finance, boring often wins. So yeah, XRP might not give you the ideological rush of Bitcoin or the innovation playground of Ethereum. But if you're asking me which asset has the clearest, most battle-tested use case that institutions actually want, XRP is still high on the list. And as we roll deeper into 2025, that utility story is only getting stronger. Let's pivot into the elephant that has been dancing on XRP's back for years, the legal battle. Because you cannot talk about XRP in 2025 without unpacking the roller coaster of Ripple versus the SEC. That lawsuit, launched back in late 2020, was a cloud that hung over this asset like a permanent thunderstorm. Every pump was capped, every narrative was questioned, every investor felt like they were playing chicken with regulators. But here's the thing, what started as XRP's biggest problem ended up transforming into one of its biggest strengths. Let me rewind quickly. The SEC came out guns blazing, claiming Ripple sold XRP as an unregistered security. They basically said, this isn't a currency, this isn't a commodity, this isn't just some utility token. This is a security offering, and Ripple didn't follow the rules. That accusation was nuclear. Exchanges delisted XRP. Investors panicked. The price cratered. It looked like game over. But Ripple didn't fold. They fought back. Hard. They lawyered up and said, no, XRP is not a security. It functions as a digital asset used in payments, and you, the SEC, are stretching your mandate. Fast forward through years of motions, hearings, and mountains of legal filings, and Ripple actually scored landmark wins. Judges began narrowing the SEC's claims. Key rulings established that programmatic sales of XRP on secondary markets did not constitute securities transactions. That was massive, not just for Ripple but for the entire crypto industry. Because if the SEC had won outright, they could have gone after Ethereum, after Cardano, after Solana, basically anything not named Bitcoin. Ripple became the test case, and in many ways, it became the firewall protecting the rest of crypto. By 2023, those partial victories started to flip the narrative. Exchanges relist XRP. Institutional money cautiously returned. And by 2025, the case has effectively reshaped the regulatory landscape. Ripple is not in the clear 100%. Settlements, fines, and ongoing oversight still hang in the air. But the existential threat? That's gone. XRP survived the boss battle, and that survival has given it legitimacy that no other altcoin can really claim. Bitcoin didn't need to fight regulators because it was grandfathered in. Ethereum skated by thanks to the Hinman speech and ambiguity. But XRP? It looked the SEC in the eye and lived to tell the tale. That's powerful. Now here's where it gets interesting. This fight forced Ripple to go global. Instead of putting all their eggs in the US basket, they expanded aggressively into Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. The lawsuit made America a slow lane, but the rest of the world became open highways. Central banks in Asia started exploring Ripple's on-demand liquidity. Latin American payment corridors adopted it. Africa, one of the fastest-growing regions for mobile money, became fertile ground for Ripple partnerships. By being pushed out of the US spotlight, Ripple planted seeds worldwide. And here in 2025, those seeds are blooming. That's the irony. The SEC tried to choke XRP in the crib, and instead it forced Ripple to become global first. And in a multipolar world where the US dollar isn't the only game in town anymore, that global first positioning is gold. Because while Congress drags its feet on crypto laws, other regions are sprinting ahead with clarity. Dubai has crypto frameworks. The EU has MiCA. Asia has its sandbox environments. Ripple is right there, slotting XRP into the rails of international payments while Washington is still holding hearings. But let's not romanticize it too much. The scars are still real. XRP missed out on a huge portion of the 2021 bull run because of the lawsuit overhang. Investors were hesitant. Liquidity was fragmented. Trust was dented. And even now, some institutions remain cautious, waiting for absolute clarity before they dive in. That shadow hasn't vanished completely. But the difference is this: instead of being crippled by it, Ripple adapted. They're playing the long game, betting that compliance and partnerships will matter more in the next decade than hype and memes. And you know what? They might be right. Because look at what's happening in 2025. Governments are actively integrating blockchain into payment infrastructure. Not because they love decentralization, but because they want efficiency. They want traceability. They want programmable money. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, are being piloted in dozens of countries. And guess who's been at the table in those conversations? Ripple. They've been working with central banks as consultants, as infrastructure providers, as bridges. Now, does every CBDC use XRP? No, that's a misconception. But does Ripple's involvement put XRP in a favorable light as a liquidity tool? Absolutely. Think of XRP as the neutral currency oiling the gears of a fragmented world. If one country's CBDC doesn't want to directly touch another's, XRP is the neutral bridge asset in between. That's the value proposition regulators are warming up to. It's not about speculation. It's about interoperability. And that narrative, XRP as neutral bridge, only gained legitimacy because of the legal clarity Ripple fought tooth and nail to establish. Now zoom out even further. The lawsuit forced Ripple to become more transparent, more structured, more professional. The company now publishes detailed quarterly reports on XRP sales, escrow movements, and market activity. Compare that to most other crypto projects. Opaque foundations, shadowy token unlocks, hype cycles with no accountability. Ripple is basically running like a public company already, and that's exactly what institutional players want. It's ironic. The SEC lawsuit accused Ripple of lacking transparency, and the end result is Ripple becoming one of the most transparent companies in crypto. So where does that leave XRP in 2025? Stronger, more battle-tested, legally clarified, globally positioned. It doesn't mean the road is smooth. There are still skeptics, competitors, and regulatory hurdles. But the survival story itself is part of the pitch now. When institutions look at crypto, they see volatility, rug pulls, endless lawsuits. But when they see XRP, they see a survivor that's already been through the fire. That makes it safer in their eyes. Not perfect, but safer. And here's my take. In the coming years, when trillions of dollars flow into blockchain rails, not the speculative casino, but the actual payment plumbing, projects with legal clarity will win. Projects that can sit across from a central bank, a regulator, a Fortune 500 boardroom and say, "We've been audited, we've been tested, we've been through court, and we're still standing." That's not Bitcoin's role. That's not Ethereum's role. But it fits XRP like a glove. So yes, the SEC lawsuit was brutal. It dragged on for years, it kneecapped XRP during crucial cycles, and it became the butt of endless jokes. But in hindsight, it forged Ripple and XRP into something tougher. It gave them scars, but those scars are credibility. And in the next phase of this industry, the institutional adoption phase, that credibility is priceless. So let's play this out. Because when you strip away all the noise, the lawsuits, the FUD, the partnerships, the drama, the core question people keep circling back to is simple. What's the scenario where XRP actually makes you a millionaire? Is it realistic? Or is it just hopium dressed up as math? Let's be honest, nobody knows the future. But we can run the thought experiments, and that's where it gets interesting. Scenario 1, the conservative path. XRP doesn't moon, it doesn't flip Bitcoin, it doesn't reinvent money. Instead, it slowly but surely cements itself as part of the global payment plumbing. Banks, remittance companies, and payment providers quietly keep integrating on-demand liquidity. CBDCs plug into RippleNet here and there. Gradually, transaction volume rises, liquidity deepens, and XRP creeps up from under $2 today to maybe $5, maybe $10 over the next decade. That's not overnight riches, but if you've got a decent bag, that's life-changing. Slow burn, low drama, high conviction. Scenario 2, the explosive path. The world leans harder into blockchain rails as the global financial system keeps fracturing. Dollar dominance weakens, multipolar trade rises, and cross-border settlements need a neutral asset fast. Instead of reinventing the wheel, institutions lean on XRP because it's already battle-tested. Suddenly, adoption snowballs and price action catches up. XRP doesn't just climb to $10, it rockets past $50, $70, maybe even triple digits if global liquidity demand gets wild. That's the kind of scenario where $5,000 worth today could snowball into 7 figures in a decade. Sounds crazy, but we've seen crazier in crypto. Scenario 3, the bearish one. Ripple keeps building, but competitors eat into the niche. Stellar, JP Morgan Coin, CBDCs with direct corridors. All of them chip away at XRP's role as bridge currency. Price stagnates, maybe creeping to $2 or $3, but never breaking free of gravity. In that world, XRP holders don't get wrecked, but they also don't get rich. It becomes less of a moonshot and more of a stable, niche utility token. So which path plays out? Nobody knows. But here's what I do know. XRP isn't dead. It's not a ghost chain. It's not a vaporware project. It's not a meme coin waiting for a TikTok pump. It's an asset with real infrastructure, real partners, and a real plan. And love it or hate it, it's already survived storms that would have killed most other cryptos 10 times over. That resilience is the edge. So here's my call to action for you. Don't just take my word for it. Do the math yourself. Look at the adoption curve. Study the escrow reports. Follow the partnerships. Ask yourself not just, what if XRP hits $100? But, what if XRP simply succeeds in doing what it was designed for? Because sometimes the boring, realistic scenario pays better than the fantasy one. And if XRP does hit the fantasy one, well, that's when history repeats itself and the next wave of $900 millionaires are born.